Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Jeffers, and I serve as the media coordinator at the Alliance for Innovation Infrastructure, AII. And this year, we're hosting our fourth annual Energy Month campaign, where we educate on the importance of our nation's energy infrastructure. And I get to speak with industry professionals to gain insight into the energy resource relevant to their line of work. Today, I'm very excited to be discussing oil and gas with Dale Miranda, a refined products scheduler for United Energy Trading LLC. Thank you for being here today, Dale.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We're very excited to have you here and have you speak on all the things that you do. To begin, I would love for you to talk about what inspired you to enter your profession and your current role and responsibilities.
My grandfather on my mother's side worked for Chevron for 35 plus years. My mother was an oil and gas accountant all her life. My biological father went to work as a roughneck right out of college to make ends meet. And then my mom remarried my stepfather, who's a drilling engineer. So it was just kind of always in the family. When my mother remarried my stepfather, we traveled all over the country and the world every 5 years. So I got to see a lot of that life and understand really what it took to be in oil and gas and the benefits and the drawbacks and the whole livelihood of it. But we went from Colorado, Montana, Alaska, and Norway. Got to experience a lot of wonderful things. So really, it was always kind of around me. What I handle day to day is pipeline, trucking, terminal space, and basically customer support any way we can with everything you see at the gas pump, as well as natural gas and oil. We have those books as well. What I do right now is I make sure that once the deals are done, that all of the product flows accordingly to our customer base. And a lot of different markets all over the US and a lot of different avenues that way as well. So a lot going on as far as logistics mainly.
What are the biggest challenges that your industry faces?
There's quite a few things. Politics, weather, customer demand. There are, I would say, 4 to 5 things at any given moment, foreign affairs, geopolitical things that can really affect, for one, pricing every single day. Those are combos that never cease. They always rotate. Some might be stronger, some might be weaker. But I would say the main thing, specifically for Colorado, that's where we're based on, is politics. Colorado is a deep blue state now, looking at other avenues for energy, which is totally fine. But it definitely squeezes the customer and the flow and basically just everything in general. Politics for sure, weather, hurricane season, things like that. It's an ever evolving market challenge, really, overall.
This is a very complex question. There's no simple answer to this. How do you think that these challenges could be overcome?
Well, I can't control weather, but as far as geopolitics and political constraints or red tape would really be, I mean, to educate the voter, educate the masses, educate people on how things work, how it affects their daily life, that you really can't swing one way or the other, left or right or center to meet energy demand. We don't have a world that's decreasing in population. We are increasing population energy demand. Yeah, I think it starts with educating people how important it is, what the future holds, how we can evolve, how we can make it better. Every industry out there in the world can be better, can be cleaner, can be more responsible for what they produce and how they transport. But really, I think it starts with people knowing how important it is when they go to the ballot box. There's also market structure, right? What does your state specifically say about your emissions? How do you continually fit a growing demand for energy when you have increased red tape around certain, industry standards, things like that. So yeah, it's a complicated question for sure.
Yeah, what would you say the fundamental importance of oil and gas is?
I had an instructor when I first got into oil and gas. We were sitting in a big conference room and he goes, I challenge any one of you to tell me anything in this room that hasn't touched oil and gas or energy in some way. And none of us could think of anything, right? Nothing in the parking lot, nothing in the building, nothing, blah, blah, blah. So really the fundamentals is we use it every day and everybody does, right? Plastics, hospitals, I mean, transportation, anything to do with growing a family, anything to do with transporting yourself to work, anything to go on vacation. The fundamentals are everyone uses it and we need it. And it's not a perfect system. I don't think as humans, we will never develop a perfect system for a consumer world. That's what we are. The fact of the matter is every single one of us uses it every day. And even in not just this country, but other countries, third world countries, the reason why we have been getting people out of poverty is because they have access to energy. They have access to educate themselves with Wi-Fi, with more infrastructure, with better water, cleaner water, better roads to get to schools and things like that. So We use it every day. It's in demand every day, and it's only increasing as we move forward.
Going back a little bit when you were talking about wanting to be clean, striving to have a cleaner, greener approach to
Mhm.
energy, how is the push toward sustainability and lower carbon emissions affecting the refined product sector, would you say?
The Green Deal movements, the ESG movements, is too constricting too fast. As of right now, there is a huge push to manage climate change, which has been happening for millions of years. That's very hard to capture, right? But the selling point for the other side of the industry, I would say, is you're clamping off what we already have and is sustainable too fast. You start breaking it down to different states. What are their carbon emissions? What does the EPA say? What does the government say that you need to be under or involved with, or what you need to divest in? I don't want to say it's a complete attack, but it is going against the grain right now. I would say almost swimming upstream because we have something sustainable. We have things that are very green, so to speak, right? I don't know why that we don't have all public transit on natural gas. We have more natural gas in the United States than anybody else does in the world. We should be more independent, right? That's national security. To have all these, the ESG movement, the green deals, the is really just kind of cutting everything off too soon. And that puts a lot of constraint on really an ever-growing demand, which we need to keep up with. But it's harder to transport, harder to drill, harder to capture what we need energy-wise in order to fulfill.
That definitely sounds like a fairly substantial challenge.
It's a large one, absolutely.
How is technology changing the way that refined products are scheduled and managed?
Technology is making everything more efficient, right? We are better with volume, we are better with demand, we're better with the structure of our forecasting, our scheduling. Technology has been, I don't want to say saving the environment, but it's been better at being good to the environment and better to the environment than we have in the past. So you have a drilling rig in the 1970s, doesn't look like a drilling rig now, or pipeline. We have better infrastructure, we have better support, we have better IT assisting. We can manage things in the field at a click of a button instead of transporting people back and forth to make sure that they're out there watching something manually. Also, as far as carbon emissions, we can capture and we can harness and we don't have to flare. And the technology has advanced so well that we really are able to manage the industry as a whole and the product flow as a whole much more better and efficient.
It's also funny considering all the things that you're talking about, everything that we're able to have because of these resources, right? And so
Hmm.
it's interesting when we are talking about technology, which for the most part runs on energy infrastructure.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, given all of this, what would you like the public to know? And
There,
you can categorize also.
I think the industry as a whole has never been painted as a good guy, so to speak. Even though I have met hundreds and hundreds of people in this industry, upstream, midstream, downstream, and everything in between. And I've never met someone who is, hates the environment, wants less regulations on spills, doesn't want carbon emission cap. Like there are really, really great people in this industry. And unfortunately, I think there's been quite a few bad players or incidents in the past that make this industry look horrible. But then again, we all use computers, we all use Wi-Fi, we all use the infrastructure, we all drive on asphalt and concrete, which comes from movement of diesel and gasoline. And again, there's so many things that we use on a daily basis that we should appreciate. And the reason why we have all these things is because of energy. Oil and gas isn't a very sexy thing. It's not an attractive thing by any means, but it is something that is a necessity for human growth and life moving forward and always will be. We need things constantly every single day. And that's everything from obviously food, water, homes, infrastructure, transportation, and that will only increase as we move forward. So I would just like the public to know that there are incredible people in this industry. There are incredible supports in this industry that want to see this world a green and beautiful place. But we just can't shut it off right now. It's just not possible. Kind of a utopian thing. But if we can kind of all get together and agree, hey, we need this, but we also need other things as well, right? Nuclear, solar, things like that. We should be all motivated to see how we can combine those things for a better future for not only for humans and our growth of life, but as the world in general.
What trends in consumer behavior do you think are influencing the demand for refined products?
I would say currently it's the price of everything, right? It's not getting cheaper to live. So People are, cutting back with everything from their gas tank to the grocery store, back to school items. Kids are going back to school here in a week or two. People are cutting back because it's harder to maintain a growing life like that. And if you have a family of two, three, four, that's a very expensive way to live. Unfortunately, now, that's not every state or anything like that. But I think consumer demand is down for a majority of, what we purchase. Mainly, I would say that would affect upstream and energy production itself. But as far as refined products specifically, a lot of these companies have to have a certain price point with a barrel of oil, saying, "Oh yes, we can do this business deal. Oh yes, or no, we can't do this business deal." The squeeze from a price standpoint can really dictate a lot of people's future revenue.
With an increased focus on renewable energy, how has the perception of oil and gas changed?
And I'm just speaking in general, but I think people would like to or think that is a replacement right now. Oh, we need solar panels. Oh, we need EV vehicles. We need to divest. We have an ESG movement that says, well, we're going to crack down on companies and what they put their money into, which is pretty hard to do. These movements here forget that every piece of a wind turbine or every piece of an EV vehicle has something to do with plastics or transportation or how do you think we got all these rare minerals out of the earth? Well, they're diesel engines, right? They're massive machines that take days and days and months to basically tear the earth apart to find these minerals and then to ship them and to make them into batteries. Well, what's completely covered in batteries? Well, they're plastics, right? So these movements of EVs, these movements of more electricity, which by the way, where does most electricity come from? Coal and natural gas.
Yeah, well,
So
people aren't cognizant of the energy mix in their area.
right, exactly. And let's just say everybody in the Denver metro area decided to get a Tesla, right? Well, everybody needs more plastic and metal in their home to coordinate and touch the grid, right? Be connected to the grid. Well, we don't have enough energy right now to do that. We don't have enough infrastructure. We don't have enough time to do that. And we can't cut natural gas and oil right off just to say, okay, we're all going to be electric because that's where our energy is coming. That's where our actual electricity is coming from. I think that the push in that direction is a great idea and should be followed through. But it has now been politicized. It's now been, ooh, this is big bad. This is the new thing. And if you don't like, the earth being green and wonderful, then you're, not with us. You're a bad person. That's not the case at all. We could be better in every industry about being better with the planet. I mean, again, we discussed before. I don't see anybody really upset with tobacco companies, even though every time I drive down I-25, there are 10,000 cigarette butts out the window,
Mhm.
right? So, and a lot of those people who smoke, I would sure vote for green energy, right? I'm just kind of like throwing that out there, but not everyone does. But there are certain things that you can't just blanket across the industry and say, oh, well, we need to get rid of this because it's bad. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of other industries out there too that are hurting the planet in like plastic bags, plastic bottles. What does the U.S. do for recycle? They ship it to China or they ship it elsewhere. We don't have a system in place to recycle plastics, but anybody that doesn't like oil and gas may drink Coca-Cola, whatever it is. I mean, it's a little convoluted, and again, you can't blanket the industry and say, okay, this is something that we need to overhaul and go a different direction because you just can't cut it off immediately. And there's too many things that it affects on a daily basis. Again, medical supplies, raising a family, infrastructure, transportation. I mean, it just doesn't go away.
So, with that being said, what would you like policymakers and decision makers to know?
They already know everything. It's not that they don't know anything. They just choose to ignore facts or would like to, well, they need to appease voters, right? So at the end of the day, if there's a new big movement towards greenness and ESG and we're divesting away and we're going away from fossil fuels, that's a selling point. That is something that has been again politicized and turned into, oh, if you don't support this, then you must be like this and you're a bad person. You don't want, green energy for the environment. Hey, we need to move away from fossil fuels and do this immediately. I think that it's again a great selling point. It's been a political standpoint now to say you're either on this side or this, and it's just really not fair for people to decide. Just for a quick example, the lifespan of wind turbines, right? Not that long, takes an incredible amount of energy to build, and then you can't recycle a lot of the old windmills, so they bury them. There's a twin turbine graveyard outside of Casper, Wyoming, that basically just dumps plastic and metal back into the earth and then they cover it back up. It's just not sustainable. Those things aren't sustainable for a long time, even though it sounds like a great idea. And it may be, and we need those things. But again, with solar, you ask anybody in Colorado, we have 300 plus days of sunshine a year. And why doesn't everybody have solar on their roof? Because it's not feasible. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to get your money back in 20 some years. I'm just kind of going off the rail there a little bit, but it's not 20 years. It could be 15, it could be 25 years. But it just none of it really makes sense right now. And I think that the politicians need to realize that, especially an administration that has completely depleted the oil reserves, how do we want if we're going to go green, why do we want China to make more oil and gas when they don't have regulations like we do? And their dumping standards, things like that, their carbon emission standards. Why are we allowing other third world countries or other countries to develop oil and gas in more unsafe manners and for the environment than the US does? So basically, we're sending energy overseas. We're having jobs overseas instead of in the US. And from a politics standpoint, they need to realize what goes on a daily basis, how important it is to all of our lives. And again, let's say politicians, they don't usually have small houses. They have multiple. They have private jets, right? There are multiple transportation methods that they use weekly and monthly that all run on oil and gas. So when they're trying to push it away and they still use it, it's very hard to take them seriously.
Thank you, Dale, for being with us today. To learn more, visit aii.org.